In this video, I'm going to show you how to easily make a delicious homemade burger, beer battered onion rings, and double cooked chips. Let's get to it. Firstly, a list of kitchen utensils. A tall casserole dish or a deep saucepan, this will be for deep frying the onion rings. A large mixing bowl for mixing the burger meat and battering the onion rings. For frying the burgers, a cast iron pan works best. If you don't have one, then a frying pan will be just fine. A non-glass baking tray for cooking the chips. And a weighing scales to measure out your burgers evenly. For the ingredients, a good quality minced beef with a fat content of at least 15%. Brioche buns are my go-to choice. Seeded or plain buns are also a great choice. Cheese slices, American or mature cheddar, is up to you. And for the sauce, ketchup, mayonnaise and Dijon mustard. 1 small onion for the burger mix and 2 large onions for the onion rings. Plain or all-purpose flour for the dry batter. A spice mix of garlic powder, onion powder, cayenne pepper and smoked paprika. I'm using an IPA for this recipe. Golden Ale also works. You'll need at least 1 litre of sunflower oil depending on the size of your pan, and for the chips I've gone with Maris Piper potatoes. Russet potatoes also work well. And lastly, bicarbonate of soda. This gives the chips a crispy exterior and a light fluffy interior. We're going to start by removing any excess dirt and rough bits from the potato. Get a clean scouring pad and work around each potato. Once the potatoes are cleaned, we're going to square off all the edges. This will help the potato lay flat when cutting. Start by cutting lengthways. You want the slices to be almost an inch thick. If they're too skinny, they'll dry out during the cooking process. Any offcuts of potato you can leave to the side and use in another dish. Once you've cut up all the chips, we're going to rinse them twice to get rid of any excess starch. Transfer them to a saucepan, fill it up with just enough cold water to cover the chips. Get them on a high heat, add salt and half a teaspoon of bicarbonate of soda. Whilst the chips are coming up to the boil, we'll get started on the onions. Slice the onion down the middle like so, and same as the chips, we want thick slices of onion rings. Push out the layers from the center to expose the individual rings. Just be careful not to split them. Once you've sliced up both of your onions, transfer them to a bowl and a bath of ice water. This process helps dilute enzymes in the onion, removing that harsh raw onion flavor. Once the water's come to a boil, turn it down to a simmer, and then we're going to cook for 3 to 5 minutes. The bicarbonate of soda has helped break down the exterior of the potato, and the insides will cook much quicker. After 3 to 5 minutes, drain the potatoes, lay them out carefully on a paper towel to air dry. We can let the chips dry for as long as we need until they're ready to cook. The air drying leaves the exterior nice and dry so they crisp up easier since we're cooking these in the oven. For the onion rings, a simple 2-part battering process. Firstly, just plain flour with no seasoning to initially coat the onion rings. This will give the wet batter something to grab onto. Cover all the rings in flour, shake off any excess and leave to the side. To the same bowl of flour, we'll add the 4 spices and a good pinch of salt. Incorporate them together with a whisk or fork before adding the beer. There is no measure for the beer, add a little bit at a time until you get a loose batter. If you add too much beer, add a tablespoon of flour to thicken it back up. Once the batter is ready, throw your onion rings in and get them thoroughly coated. You can even leave them resting in the batter until it's time for them to cook. At this point, it's a good idea to get your oven preheated for the chips. Into a mixing bowl goes 1 pound of minced beef, half a finely diced onion, and 1 egg yolk. An easy way to separate the yolks from the white is to place it in a bowl and let the white run through your fingers. Mix the ingredients together until they are well incorporated. 1 pound of minced beef should make 4 burgers. We're going to weigh them out as quarter pounders. Shape the burgers by cupping your hands and lightly pressing the mixture together. Don't press too hard or else the texture will be too compact and it will ruin the burger. Once you've shaped your burgers, put them in the fridge for at least 20 minutes until they're ready to cook. Add some oil to your baking tray and place it in the oven for 5 minutes. You want the oil to be nice and hot so the chips can start cooking quickly. Lay out the chips in one layer without overcrowding the pan. Drizzle some oil on top and transfer them to a high rack in the oven for about 25 minutes. In the meantime, we can start to cook the onion rings. Fill your pot with at least 1 liter of oil, use more if necessary. Put it on a high heat until the oil comes up to temperature. A way to see if the oil is hot enough is to put a drop of batter in. If it sizzles aggressively and floats, then it's ready to cook. Give the onion rings one last coat in the batter, and then using tongs, lay them in the oil away from you. Do this carefully as hot oil splashes can burn you. Use a fork to agitate the onion rings so they don't stick together. Flip them once during cooking. This should take about 4 or 5 minutes. Once cooked to a golden brown, transfer them to a bowl lined with a paper towel and repeat the cooking process with the next batch. Once all cooked, you can cover with some foil or place them in the top oven which is not being used. After 20 or 30 minutes in the fridge, it's time to season the burgers. We're seasoning just before cooking. If you season before putting the burgers in the fridge, the salt will draw out all the moisture and dry out the burgers. Get the pan nice and hot and add some oil. You can use the same oil that you used to cook the onion rings in. Place the burgers in the pan, press them down with a flexible spatula, or oil the bottom of a small plate and simply press. The oil will prevent the burger from sticking. After about 3 minutes, flip your burgers. You want to see a deep crust browning. If not, then your pan might not have been hot enough. Place on the cheese slices and let it melt for a minute before removing the burgers to let them rest. Have a check on the chips halfway through cooking. You'll want to rotate any that aren't browning nicely. And now for the good part. In a small dish, add your mayonnaise, ketchup and mustard. Toast the buns under a grill. It's much easier than toasting them in the pan. Lay down a good spoonful of the burger sauce, followed by your burger patties. You can dress the burger however you like. I'm keeping it simple with this one. Serve up your chips and crumble on some flaky salt. This combo of onion rings, chips and burger works a treat. You won't be disappointed. I hope you've enjoyed this simple yet delicious recipe. Let me know how you get on. Please consider subscribing if you'd like to see more videos like this in the future. See you soon.